Good evening, everyone. It is 5 p.m. and it is our Huntersville Town Board pre-meeting on October the 3rd of 2022. And we are going to be having a discussion regarding the North State project approval. Mr. Semino, I believe I will turn this over to you.
Mayor, I'll just ask, I think Commissioner Kovacs and Commissioner Phillips had put this on the agenda, so
They did. I apologize.
I think they had, you're right, but I think they had a couple of comments beforehand to start it off.
Fair enough. Who wants to start? Commissioner Kovacs.
Hi, y'all. Thanks for coming tonight. Happy birthday, Jack. Sorry to interrupt. So I was going to kind of explain where this started, so that way we know why it's on the agenda. On September 19th, a resident reached out to me and asked me a question about the North State Town Center project. And I knew the plans had just been approved, so I pulled it up on our very easy-to-use planning website. And then when I was looking at the website, I noticed that the retail space appeared to be significantly smaller than I remembered, so I started pulling up the minutes from the January 19th meeting. And those reports first stated that David Pete stated, "I have full planning board recommendation," and I'm only reading that first because it came up in the minutes first. But I did want to point out that there was, Frank Gammon was not present at that meeting, so it wasn't actually the full planning board, so it was unanimous of just the attendees that day. But then Commissioner Walsh made a motion that specifically stated, while the developer is not proposing to achieve the 30% tree save, they do commit to working with staff to achieve a 15% tree save. And in all cases, minimum required tree save would be mitigated per the provisions of the zoning ordinance as described in Article 7. And I read that because I will have a question about that later. And with those provisions, I'm paraphrasing because it was a very long motion. So with those provisions, it's reasonable and in the public interest to rezone 9.947 acres as described in attachment B of the staff report from TC, NR, and GR to Town Center Mixed Use Conditional District Rezoning Plan as provided in our packet and dated January 5th, 2021, to permit 12,000 square feet of commercial space, which is not to be used for leasing, exercise, or other amenities associated with apartments, and no more than 134 apartments, 41 townhomes, and 11 single-family homes. Upon seeing this, I realized that the plan that is currently approved provides much less than 12,000 square feet of commercial. Some space on the main floor consists of flex storage space at 710 square feet, maintenance at 680 square feet, maintenance office at 113 square feet, auxiliary electrical 81 square feet, main electrical 196 square feet, corridor of 163 square feet leading to bike storage, pet and a pet spa, mail at 389 square feet, and a package room 280 square feet, and then a pass-through at 794 equaling 3,406 square feet. There is commercial A that will be 3,526 square feet, and commercial B will be 4,043 square feet. And if you were to combine all those, although I don't believe they should be combined, that gives you a total of 10,975 square feet, which in my math is still not 12,000. So there were many questions, emails that were sent to staff trying to figure out the discrepancy between the motion and the approved plan. And Mr. Semino was there to kind of clear up some of the confusion. On September 19th, I was forwarded an email from Ms. Amy Hallman, who had been emailing staff about the same situation, and the response to both of us was combined and included former Commissioner Walsh, who made the motion originally. And the email stated, "I thought it best to use the email to answer your questions and address your concerns. Below is the motion made by Nick Walsh, as has been indicated in the motion below, included 12,000 square feet of commercial space. However, the motion also referenced the January 5th, 2021 rezoning plan, also below. That plan referenced a modification of no more than 66% residential on the first floor. The motion and the notes on the plan raised a question in our mind as to what specifically was approved. To address that question, we had a conference call with Mr. Walsh, staff, and Shane Siegel, where we went over the proposed floor plan to detail what part of the building is assigned to residential and non-residential floor area. Attached is the final floor plan and staff accepted as meeting the conditional rezoning plan. I find this extremely concerning because I feel if clarification needed to be made now about the motion, not only Commissioner Walsh, who made the motion, should have been contacted, especially the person who seconded the motion, and then the rest of the commissioners who had to vote either yay or nay on said motion. There's a vast difference between the two, and it could be enough to change votes, and I would like to know, later it can be answered, I guess, but I'd like to know what the proper protocol on this situation is. Later, we were all forwarded an email responding to Commissioner Phillips from Ms. Sloop, and it said, attached is the planning presentation that was presented for this item. As you can see, all of the slides refer to 12,000 square feet of non-residential, not commercial space, although the motion did say commercial. My understanding is that the developer and their attorney, Susan Irvin, had previous communications with planning staff and town board regarding the various versions of the plan, and that the January 5th version of the plan was what eventually agreed upon to be presented for the vote on 1/19/21. Once a motion is made, seconded, it would be up to the town board members to ask for clarification if they did not understand the motion prior to voting on the matter. I wanted to know why this is referring to the commissioners who voted being the ones that misunderstood the motion. If it was a problem with the motion referring to a plan and then a specific amount of detail, then why was that only clarified with one person? And I'd really like to ask those of you who were on the board during this time, were any of you asked what you thought about the motion or the discrepancies?
I was against the project from the start.
But were you contacted about it? You?
I don't believe so.
So I don't feel as though the town board members can be responsible for the discrepancies when they weren't even contacted to know that there was a discrepancy. And do you feel confident in your vote now, seeing that it's different than what it was written, or from your understanding? Do you feel your vote represented what is being done now?
From where I sit, I would have voted no, because it was very clear that 12,000 square feet of commercial, non-residential commercial space for business was the goal.
Okay.
This certainly is not the end result that we negotiated.
You guys were no. So lastly, on September 28th, Mr. Simoneau sent an email to the town manager, Anthony Roberts, stating, "This is to inform you I instructed Kaylee to approve building permit for North State mixed-use building. The final floor plan is attached and is consistent with the percentage of residential and non-residential floor shown on the rezoning plan dated July 5th. Again, this is where the discrepancy is between that and the 12,000 that was stated in the motion. For clarity, we reached out to Nick Walsh in June 2021 to make sure the first floor plan was consistent with this motion for approval. He agreed that it was. Please note that our other agencies had comments on building plans, and those comments must be addressed before the building permit is released by Mecklenburg County." So my takeaways from this so far, and why we're kind of all meeting about this at the pre-meeting, at least from my perspective, is that motion was made, and then it was changed by then Commissioner Walsh after running it by with Ms. Sloop. So he had conversed with Ms. Sloop about what the motion should be. The addition of statements as provided in our packet dated January 5th, 2021 was added after Ms. Sloop went over it. And that was added before the statement of permitting 12,000 square feet of commercial space. The addition of the motion with a confusing statement was not caught on the dais. The staff was later confused about the motion, assuming 12,000 square feet did not trump the percentage of square feet referenced in the plan. Commissioner Walsh was contacted to see what he meant in regards to this motion, but no other board members were. A new vote was not taken due to this significant change, and as we just heard, it was something that would have changed people's votes. We do not have, I want to know, what is the appropriate way to handle this? Because it appears we don't have an appropriate way to handle this, and we need to figure out how this can be significantly rectified. Was this legal to do this with only one commissioner and not the rest of them? Why was a decision made by former Commissioner Walsh to accept less than 12,000 square feet? why are we accepting square footage clearly that is the majority for residential as non-residential? And what percentage of something does it have to be for commercial space to be considered commercial, even if it's being used by residential? And ultimately, we just need to know who's at fault for the determination of 1/3 less of square footage than what was approved on the dais, and being allowed to give a developer full control as opposed to the board. Sorry.
Commissioner Phillips?
I think she said everything much better than I ever could.
So, Mr. Semino, would you like to go through your presentation
Yes.
packet?
And so you have a copy of the presentation. So what I tried to do is build the history of what happened. And so, let's see here. Why is this not going forward? What do I got to do? What do I have to do to get it to go forward? There we go. I'm not sure what I hit, so this next slide, I might need more help. So, first thing, I want to remind everybody, there was 2 steps involved in this. The town was selling an L-shaped piece of property, and so the contract to sell that property said that the board has to approve a conceptual plan. And I'll talk about that conceptual plan. And then after that conceptual plan was approved, then they moved to rezoning. So I want to compartmentalize this into those 2 actions. October 19th, 2020, this was the request in the agenda packet. And it says, per the purchase contract condition, the Huntersville Town Board approved a conceptual plan on November 18th, 2019. That was the first plan. Due to the acquisition of additional land, the plan layout has changed, thereby requiring town board approval of a new conceptual plan. So that's what's happened. So let me show you the attachment of what November 18th, 2019 plan was. That was before the developers acquired more land, and you will see the front of Gilead Road says non-residential use on ground floor with residential above. Then it has a breezeway, and then also at the corner, non-residential use with ground floor with residential above. In the back of Gilead Road, it has residential/non-residential use on the ground floor with residential above. So that was the conceptual plan approved in 2019. The public hearing, or the conceptual plan that was in the agenda packet on October 19th and also on November 2nd is what you see here. October 19th, 2020, the concept plan was discussed. A tremendous amount of discussion on non-residential floor area, where the leasing area was. There was talk about a vehicle pass-through, among other things, and that was continued until November 2nd, 2021. All of the minutes are available online from our town website. Ultimately, it was continued to November 2nd, and that concept was approved. That concept plan is just as you see it here, and it says 12,000 square feet of non-residential. I will note that if you look at this note right here, it says non-residential space provided up to, not to exceed 12,000 square feet. So they didn't know how big their building was going to be, so they didn't want to commit to 12,000 square feet, but it'd be not exceed 12,000 square feet. Now I'm switching to the rezoning plans, and there was quite an evolution of the plans, and I'm showing you the evolution of the plans. We actually got 6 plans from the time they first came to us to the time it went to town board action on January the 19th, 2021. Upper left-hand corner, 7/8/21. So that's a plan that came into staff. It substantially matched the conceptual plan of that first drawing that came in. Staff was not in favor of that, felt like there needed to be all commercial on the first floor facing Gilead Road, and the leasing area should not be counted either. The second floor plan, which was actually brought to the public hearing was dated October the 5th, 2020. And that plan was actually submitted to us 8/24/21. And you'll notice the ground floor non-residential is plus or minus 7,200 square feet, and the leasing ground floor is non-residential is 3,700. You may recall, if you look where the driveway is for town center, and you'll notice that there is no connection through this, what I want to mention to you, so it's right here. During this public hearing, the town board explained to the developer, we don't want to see the leasing up there. We want to see a vehicular connection from the parking lot to, through the building. And so ultimately, the third, fourth, and fifth plans that came in that were presented at the public hearing 11/2/20 and 12/7/20 showed the leasing area outside of the shaded area, which they're presuming to be, the non-residential area. You'll notice the leasing area is now outside of that shaded area, and you'll also notice the pass-through. So there was evolution of this plan, as you may well know and remember. But ultimately, the sixth plan came in on January the 5th of 2021, and that was the one that was presented to the town board on January 19th, 2021. And that's the plan that has the notation in there about ground floor, 12,000 square feet. It's got some other comments in there, and I'll show you a plan that's a little bit more blown up with that. As Commissioner Kovacs said, the motion that Mr. Walsh made was quite lengthy. This is the motion in its entirety. What's highlighted in red is the area that Commissioner Kovacs mentioned. And it says that with these provisions, it's reasonable in the public interest to rezone 9.947 acres as described in attachment B of the staff report from TR, NR, and GR to Town Center Mixed Use Conditional District as provided in our packet and dated January 5th, 2021, which is the site plan, to permit 12,000 square feet of commercial space, which is not to be used for leasing, exercise, or other amenities associated with the apartments, and no more than 134 apartments, 41 townhomes, and 11 single-family homes. So that is the motion. This is the plan that was approved. The plan dated January 5th of 2021 says modification is being, I'm reading up here, modification is being requested to allow for more than 50% of the ground floor to be for residential use. It does show ground floor non-residential at 12,000 square feet. And then it goes in the highlighted area, it starts to talk about what could be considered non-residential and won't be considered. So non-residential areas may include commercial uses, restaurant uses, retail, office, entertainment facilities, a pedestrian path through stairwell and elevator area, but shall not include administrative leasing offices or clubhouse area that are accessory to the multifamily use. And the requested modification that was also on the plan says residential uses may constitute more than 50%, but no more than 66% of the first floor area in the portion of the building, A, located on Gilead Road, okay? So that was the conditions that were on the plan. Now, none of us had the floor plan. We did not have a floor plan. The developer did not have a floor plan of how that building was going to be laid out. They had a conceptual idea, and I will note, if you see this shaded area, you're going to see a little notation here. That's actually stairs that they shaded as, I think that they thought it would be commercial, right? So it was not until April the 2nd of 2021 that staff received the first detailed floor plan submitted. This is the plan that we received. Now, understand this. When you approve a commercial building, there's always going to be back of house things. There's always going to be. There's going to be storage. There's going to be utilities. There's always going to be that. But this is the first time we saw the plan and understood how they were allocating space. This next slide is the staff comments that we sent to the developer April 13th. I'm going to go to the red in the upper right-hand corner and show you our comment. My comment was shocked that 12,000 square feet for commercial and only 74 53 square feet, 60% is available, and we weren't able to get to that number. So that, we too were surprised when we saw that floor plan allocation. Again, we understood there would be back-of-house operations, but we did not have any idea how they were going to break this up. I'm going to point out some other comments that we have. I raised a question, it seemed like with this jog in here, it might be unsafe space, so that's what that says. We did ask the question, the depth of that building is 37 feet. We were just asking the question, is there ability to lease it? Is that deep enough? We did, when I say we, David, Pete, and I reached out to other communities and found out that could work, so that was not an issue. The flex space, our comment here is if you leave the floor plan open for a retail client to organize, why create the space? Why not just let the applicant or whoever's going to lease that space from you? And then maintenance, it seemed large to us, 635 square feet at the time. And then we previously discussed with the developer that they're not going to count access solely for residential as commercial. So those are the comments that we sent to the developer, okay? The June 3rd, 2021 updated floor plan was sent to staff. I will characterize this as there wasn't a whole lot of change, if any. There was more refinement showing us how the plan's going to be ultimately built out. But this was the plan that was sent to staff, and here are our comments. So we sent this back on June 9th, and we again said 7,500 square feet of commercial space represents only 63% of the non-residential floor area, a very small amount. We knew that the town board approved a percentage, okay, that 34% minimum of non-residential, but we still felt like this was pretty small. We asked for next, on the flex space, storage, please provide clarity what this space is for. If it's to serve non-residential, then access would not be, or access would be from commercial, not parking lots. So we're trying to figure out what's happening here? Who is this servicing? Maintenance area, again, appears excessive, taken away from commercial space. And then again, we repeated our comment. If mail, package, elevator, quarters only serve residential needs, then they need to be counted towards residential. So that was our comments on that second version. On that second version, what I'm showing you now is there was a virtual planning meeting that we had with the developer, Shane Siegel, their attorney, Susan Irvin, Commissioner Walsh, David Pete, and myself. And we went over these comments with them. And what I want to point out is what's bold or what's just caps, those were my notes that I was writing as we were having discussion, and there's a lot of misspelling, but it was kind of as discussion was going, so understand that. So when we asked for provide clarity on this space, they said the non-residential storage is shared space and determine allocation based on tenants. In other words, this was going to be for commercial tenants, but all of them get to use it. That's why they didn't have the one door in this business here. So again, I want to explain. That space was for commercial, and they explained why the door doesn't go to this is because every commercial tenant in here gets to use that space. That's why they had the door there, okay? So that's what was said. We said that the maintenance area seemed excessive, and they said, well, that's needs based on experiences from other properties. I'm not in a position to argue that. And then we mentioned about the elevator space and the package space and which is going to be counted towards residential. You can't use it. You can't use it for non-residential purposes. So this is the plan we talked about, and they were going to revise it, and we received an updated floor plan the next day, June 18th, 2021. And that floor plan, these stairwells then became residential. That became residential, and the percentages worked out to just over 34% non-residential. And I reached back out to Commissioner Walsh to say, here's the final plan. Is this consistent with your motion? And the answer was yes. And so I sent an email to Shane Siegel on June 25th, that floor plan was consistent with the motion. Okay? Now, what I'm showing you is, this is the floor plan that we talked about with Commissioner Walsh at the time, June 18th, and this is the plan that we just approved in September. The reason why I'm flipping back and forth is the only thing that really changed was they had a riser room in here, and that riser room got moved over to here, so you'll see it kind of got moved up here. So that, again, it's more refinement of the plan. And that was approved by us in September 2022. The last thing I want to go over with you is Anthony Roberts asked the developer specifically what's just solely dedicated to the commercial uses, the back of house, and what's the shared space, which is the lighter blue. So what's shown in this red area is the most recent site plan with shading out of what area was strictly for the commercial use. The lighter blue is the shared space, and then the green is the residential, and it comes out to 9,704 square feet. And so I will also point out that the traffic impact analysis was considered 12,000 square feet. So even though they've got in here, trash compaction and maintenance and storage, all that is calculated for figuring out the traffic impact analysis. So that was figured at 12,000 square feet. And we did figure out the parking, less that, what they call the paseo, which is just this pass-through here. We took that out for figuring out the commercial parking required. So this, your last has a summary of everything that kind of went on. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, try to address any issues that you have.
On that, I'll start with the last, since that's the page I'm on. That shaded in, the one you just had. So if both of those electricals are only for commercial, where's the electrical for the rest of the bottom floor?
This is the electrical here. I don't know about this one here. I didn't shade this. I don't know if that's for the residential. I don't know.
So that big one is only for commercial, and then the electrical means?
Anthony, yeah, help me out. What was the electrical in it? Did they give us a breakdown on that?
So the purple one, that's near the breezeway, if I recall, and this one's slightly different because they moved the riser up to the, I guess it would be to the north part of the plan. But the electrical near the, I'm gonna just say the breezeway, if that's, I can't read it on here, but.
There's electrical right here.
Yes, so that was the only thing that they, commercial, I'm gonna just use word commercial, they took credit for with the bottom commercial, non-residential space. And I think that was they said 90-10, 85-15 split. So 85 to 90% of that would be used for commercial, but everything else on here shaded is 100% commercial, is what, in our conversation, that conversation was Jack, myself, Shane Siegel. What I was trying to get at is, you saw these plans that reference, and like I say, I'm just rounding numbers, 7,500, et cetera, square feet. I wanted to get at what is actually commercial. I know we use residential, non-residential, but I'm just being simplistic. What is actually going to be used for 100% commercial or fairly close to 100%. I didn't count, when I talked to them about mechanical rooms, I guess it is, that was more of a 20-80, the other way. Maybe 80% of it was used towards residential and 20 towards commercial. So I didn't mark any of that or put any highlights on that. And some of these other little smaller uses, even the mail rooms and things like that, were a 10% maybe commercial and a 90% residential. So when I was highlighting this or having that conversation, we didn't shade in any of that. Hopefully that brings a little clarity.
Kind of. So in response to that, what is the definitive percentage split that's acceptable?
Say that again?
What is the definitive percentage split that is accessible? Do we have it, like, do we have a specific?
Do we have anything in the
to
code
where
that says?
it's considered one or the
I
other?
got
If I'm following you, say, well, if a certain area was 80% this and 20% that, what do you classify? Is there anything written down definitive? The answer to that question is no.
So we need,
So the answer to that question is no. What we said when there was a blank floor plate is, if you have shared space, we would count that towards non-residential, and anything that was solely for residential, we count for just residential.
you said the flex storage, I believe, when you were presenting this, you said that when you asked them, they said the flex storage was for both residential and commercial originally?
No, I apologize. It's intended for all commercial, and they explained to us, our thought was, well, if it's for commercial, why doesn't the door go to the commercial space, and why does it go out the back door? And their response to us was, all of the tenants in this building, down the commercial, non-resident, will be able to use it. That's why they have that door on the outside.
Or like storage of materials?
For anything non-residential. So that's why it's shaded in that color as well, because it's all for all the tenants of the commercial space.
Commissioner Phillips, sorry to put you on the spot. Your family owns a business. Would you put any of your items in a shared storage space?
No.
So I mean, I asked another business owner and they have it in the back of their store. They don't, other people don't have access to it. So I don't see the likelihood of that being just, especially because it, like, I mean, if you're in a commercial building A, you have to walk all the way around, go through the pass-through, and then go over just to access that. So,
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
So you'll notice the floor plans are, I mean, there's no details as to where the kitchen facility is going to be, where the bathroom facility, so there's upfitting. So when we issue permits, there's upfit. So my point simply is if that's for commercial space, you certainly wouldn't intermingle commercial space of businesses and anybody can take anybody's stuff. So the expectation would be they would upfit that to secured space in there. And so it might be a smaller closet, but that's my response. I wish the developer were here to explain to you that, but that is how I see that.
Sorry. I think originally when Jack said that this was going to be maybe entered from the exterior, on the follow-up meeting when I was trying to figure out what was truly commercial, the comment was that depending on the tenants, we may carve up that space. So it may, you knock out that back wall, and it may be part of another space. It just depends as they're getting tenants in. So like you see here, if you looked at this, you'd say, well, there's only going to be 2 tenants. If you looked at this, most likely it would be somewhere between 3 and 4 tenants. You know, no matter what you do, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 tenants, 3 more likely. So in that conversation, that back room or that flex space or whatever, depending on what the tenant wants or how much space, that may be eat up into another space. And then they may have a closet, you know, depending on the use, they may have in some of this space you see that's shaded in purple or whatever color that is, you may have a back of the room closet like Stacy's store, you know, those kind of things. So it just depends.
Last question for now. So Commissioner Walsh was contacted 2 times to clarify what he meant in the motion. So I guess Ms. Sloop, legally, is he the only one that needs to be contacted?
So in terms of the motion itself, I would point out that, first of all, when I review motions for legal sufficiency, I'm looking to see whether or not they have a legally required consistency statement and reasonableness statement. I never tell commissioners what to put in their motions. I also want to point out that, yes, he did send his motion to me to review, and I did not tell him to include the reference to the plan in the package or the date.
Oh, that's what I was trying to clarify, is that you told him it looked good, and then later it was added, not by you, but by Commissioner Walsh.
And as to who would be contacted, typically, yes, you would go back to the person that made the motion. And in this particular case, the motion was actually displayed on the screen for all of the other commissioners to see that same night. So if there was a question about what the motion meant, it would have been up to the commissioners at that time to ask for clarification of the motion.
Would it not have also been important for staff to help with the clarity as well?
That's true. If planning staff did not understand the motion that was made, they likely should have asked as well.
So, Commissioner Boone? No, you go right ahead.
Well, I think Commissioner Munger was
Oh,
requesting to
I
respond to that.
didn't.
I appreciate that you're actually on this particular section. Oh, man, this one sucks. And I apologize, but I mean, when it says to permit 12,000 square feet of commercial space, which is not to be used for leasing, exercise, or other amenities associated with the apartments, I'll stop there. That's what I voted for. That is absolutely what I voted for. And I know we don't all agree with everything, but I voted for 12,000 square feet of commercial space. Not non-residential, not a pass-through, not some storage, not electric, 12,000 square feet of commercial space. And I read the motion. That's what I voted for. And that's why this one, I don't know. I did have one other question.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
You know, I certainly feel like we're on the spot here, but this was the notes on the plan.
Absolutely.
So when we saw the vote, we saw this as the vote.
Okay.
12,000 we took as basically up to 12,000, just like that first plan. And the developer had no idea what percentage or how big the building's going to be. And so that's why the percentages, that's why they included the percentages in there. So I can appreciate that comment. I just want to be clear that the January 5th dated plan had this on it, and that's what was approved. Thank you.
Sure. And I do need to accept my own responsibility for missing that particular portion. A lot of it from our perspective is when we put together a motion, we think we're covering everything that is meant by our intent. We're trying to put together a motion. I mean, you can see this motion. This is no small motion. There's not a lot of ambiguity. We're trying to nail it. We're trying to say exactly what our intent is. Is it possible we might have overlooked a note? I'll own that, absolutely. I probably overlooked the note. But I look at this motion and I say, this is our intent. This is how we speak. This is how we try and convey what we're trying to get. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I have to own my own missing a note. Absolutely, did it.
So can I ask for more?
Yeah.
Because we always consider back house a part of the commercial. So if it was all, so there, where I see the differences is the shared space going to non-residential, but the spaces that are going to be storage for just the businesses itself, that type of thing, is that what you would consider? Because some people will see that commercial as, that's the retail space. And so that's a fair, everybody could see a little bit different shade of what.
Right, and can we flip to the map real quick? Because the one with the purple shading of sorts? Okay.
Oh, the purple shading.
Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about, the last one. There, so that flex space storage, I'm not gonna argue against it. I'm gonna say that eventually that could probably be something commercial. What I look at is that Paseo or that breezeway, show me a door to a commercial. It's not on there. It's purely residential. It essentially allows people to walk through the buildings. If you actually, if if North State wanted to lead us to believe that that was commercially related, you'd at least have a door that goes into a commercial. That's my opinion.
Okay, and my comment would be that the board asked specifically for a pass-through underneath the building for parking. So that parking, that parking happens all behind that building. So I see that comment and I say, well, that's commercial, because if I'm parking in their parking lot and I want to go to the business, I got to go through that thing to get to the door.
And that's a fair statement, yes.
So again, everybody can bring to this a different perspective, but that would be my comment there.
Okay, and that's really the only question I had. I want to kick it over. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, with the pass-through, did y'all mean the one at the top or the side? No, when the board asked for it. I wasn't on the board, so I'm asking
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
guys. Sorry.
That's this right here. This was
That's
the,
what they asked for?
yeah, the town board asked for that because there was, I think I actually have a plan. Yeah. So when this was presented at the October 5th meeting, and the board was concerned that if you have a retail business in here and they have to drive down Public Street A, then turn and go down to Public Street B, and then find a parking space, they're just going to go right into the parking deck. And some of you might shake your head and say, oh yeah, I remember those discussions that, oh yeah, this is going to be worth, so now they're going to use our deck. And so that there was a request that there be a connection there, and it's right across from our point, to get the business people parking into the parking lot as quick as possible. Yeah, no, it's a vehicular. So that was the original plan on October the 5th. And then ultimately what got approved was this is a vehicular pass-through area that gets you to the parking lot.
Thanks for that background. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Semino, I have two questions. The first question would be if you have a commissioner that made the motion, you've called and asked him to explain, why not call somebody that was on the opposite side to get their input to counter anything that was said on the other side of the argument?
So as the attorney mentioned, the motion was for approval, and that was the prevailing motion. So I went to the person who made the motion to ask, is this consistent with their comment? And you're asking me, why didn't I ask a question of somebody who voted against the motion or other people that voted for the motion?
Anybody that voted against it?
Again, hearing what I'm hearing at the dais here, that concerns me that I didn't. But I will tell you, I went right to the person who made the motion. The attorney has said that's the appropriate thing to do when there's clarity needed. That's what I did. And I felt like if the commissioner who made that motion felt like, uh-oh, we're going off kilter, let me talk with our other commissioners, that would have been done. So you may not be satisfied with my response, but that's how I would respond to that question.
That didn't happen. He answered for the entire board.
He answered for the board that voted for it. Yes, sir.
Okay, then my last question is that the original application by North State, they wanted 6,100 square feet of non-residential, I believe. And then they agreed to increase it to 12,000 square feet and has excluded the leasing office, the other apartment-related uses from this space. And I'm quoting from the public hearing notes 11/2/20. And it, to me, where we've kind of got a disconnect is you've got somebody talking about non-residential space and then somebody using another term meaning commercial. And the term commercial was used in the minutes, in the motion, but I don't see that up here in any of the plans.
In the plans, as you can see, from the time they came in the door to the time they were approved, used the term non-residential.
Yep, again, I can see, you told them 3 times that the maintenance room was too big, and they just say, the heck with that, we're not even going to deal with it.
Yeah,
That's what
we
appears
were
to me.
questioning because we wanted to see more commercial space
Sure.
and not back-of-house stuff.
That's all my questions, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Kidwell.
Thank you. Jack, thanks for putting together a presentation. Who's second to the motion?
Commissioner Munger.
Commissioner Munger. And Commissioner Munger, you were not contacted, correct? Okay. Just want to clarify that. The one thing that sticks out to me is, well, a couple things stick out to me, but, their terms of non-residential versus, even now, even when you were talking about it, you were talking about commercial. And it goes back to Commissioner Munger's, intent. The intent was commercial. I think staff saw it as commercial. And, words have meanings. So they kept going non-residential, and if they keep just saying non-residential, we keep saying commercial, but they never acknowledge it, it really puts us in a bad spot, because they can say they never said commercial on anything. And that, I think just goes to a lesson for this board and other boards going forward. And I've said it from the dais, I've said it off the dais, and it's not a slight at developers, but it's hard to trust developers. It is. Developers are in it to make money. They're going to want to buy the land from an individual or individuals for the least amount of money. They're going to come in and tell you, and they've told people who've owned farmland out here, hey, your farm is not worth what you think. Your land is not worth what you think. Then flip it and build and sell and put something on there and say, this land is so expensive. That's why this costs so much. Developers are in it to make money, so they're kind of like used car salesmen. And I'm not trying, I used to sell cars, so I'm not trying to slight them either. It's a tough business. But they're going to tell you whatever it takes to get that property and to get things moving. So I think there's a lesson there for the board to make sure that when we say non-residential or we say commercial, we want it in writing. We want them to acknowledge that. Their idea of not knowing how big the building was going to be, that, from my standpoint, is alarming. Not to staff, but to the developer. I mean, who submits plans with numbers and just thinking, well, we don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know how big it's going to, I've built houses. I know how big that house is going to be. And when I say I built houses, I was the foreman of the construction. I wasn't building for myself. So I had a plan. This is going to be a 4,200 square foot home. We're going to build a 4,200 square home. We're not going to be like, hey, we're going to start with 4,200. We may end up with 38, but it'll be cool because the person, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. That's alarming to me, and I think that should be alarming to anybody that does business with a developer that doesn't know how big a building is going to be. And I think the final thing is the lack of communication when it comes to the storage. I appreciate staff asking over and over, why is your maintenance area so big? That's a lot of space for a maintenance room. I agree. I could put some drill presses in there, a couple lathes. I could cram that thing out with shelves. That's for a manufacturing facility. I can easily fill up 680 square foot for a manufacturing facility. Now, my mother, she ran a retirement home in Kansas City, Kansas. There was a maintenance shop. There wasn't an office in the maintenance shop. There was a desk in the maintenance shop. It wasn't segregated. That maintenance shop might have been, tops 350 square feet, because you got your standard electrical supplies, your plumbing supplies. If you got to bring anything in big, like doors or whatever, you're having them shipped in. You're not keeping them on hand. So I think they did a real disservice and disrespected the town staff by not answering that question. And I'm sorry that happened. I wish, I obviously wasn't on the board when this motion was approved, and I really, Commissioner Munger, I understand how this sucks for you, because you seconded with the intent of thinking 12,000 commercial space. 12,000 commercial is going to spawn some growth in downtown Huntersville. And that's how it was kind of shelled out. Those are the cars that were being thrown at everybody. Hey, guys, we're going to put a lot of apartments there. We're tearing down a lot of trees. 12,000 commercial space. It's going to be beautiful. Restaurants are going to come in. Nightclubs, Vegas lights. I'm kidding. But you get my point. So I guess the bottom line is, what can be done now, if anything?
I mean, I would say the die has been cast. We have approved that. Lessons learned, we would, you know, if somebody comes in and they're going to have a mixed-use building or commercial, residential, you know, we would want to see floor plans, right? We start to see how much could be used up for the floor space. But having said that, you know, every business is different. I mean, if you were to look at the brewery across the street, about half of that building is the public space, and the other half is kind of back of the house. It's a brewery. So my point simply is we don't know what the users are going to be in these buildings. And even when we do, you know, one business goes out, another one comes in, and we get upfit permits to modify floor plans and walls. I mean, it's a constantly evolving floor plan whenever we issue a permit for a shopping center, because it's just the bare outside walls, and then the interior gets modified as tenants come and go.
I would say this, and it's a suggestion as we learn from mistakes that have happened. When we do have buildings come in, commercial or whatnot, or we have upfit requests, you know, we are lucky enough in the town of Huntersville, we have a lot of these types of businesses and buildings around that we've approved in the past that we could go to the owner. We're not sharing trade secrets. We're not saying, let me, you know, you're building a brewery over here. You know, we run down to Primal and talk to one of the owners and say, hey, you own a brewery. Does this seem right? Yeah, evidently we're not sharing the recipes, but, you know, just what they would think. And they may say, yeah, I mean, that seems about on. I mean, it's just another level of eyes looking at something. And I know you guys are qualified. I've worked with you a number of years. I'm just throwing that out there. But I do appreciate you putting everything together.
I will point out another possible text amendment is when it says up to 50% residential on the first floor, but the rest non-residential. We could clarify the text to say, and the non-residential shall not include any shared space. So, I mean, we could clarify, you know, that and have it actually in the code so that as developers move forward, they know what is expected of them.
Commissioner Phillips, do you have something to say before I close this up?
Yes. So I was one of two who opposed this project. I don't know if it was due to COVID or what, but there were conversations on both sides of it because we were stuck at home. And I want to say that I know the intent of Munger and Bales through this was to do the right thing. My feelings have been so hurt for them as fellow commissioners because it's put into question their integrity with no fault of their own. And going forward, I think if anything like this ever happens again, at the barest minimum, we need to change our policies and procedures that if there are things brought to question, the second has to be in these meetings. Because a meeting or a motion doesn't have any validity without a second, it dies. And sitting here and hearing these two people, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I can see that you guys are frustrated. I see that there's some remorse because you didn't get the intent of what you were doing. And I don't want to put another board through this again. I don't want anyone else to ever have to have, it's a very gross thing to say, but like blood on their hands. Like you guys are carrying all this weight that was not your fault, and it should be better. So if there's any way to change policies and procedures at the barest minimum, I think that's something we must do.
Commissioner Phillips, from where I sit, this will never happen again because we will be putting things in place to make sure that, A, that if there is something called into question between notes on a plan and the motion, that it is reaffirmed with all those commissioners. The second thing that I do believe we need to make some changes around is moving forward from where I sit, and this is for you, Mr. Roberts. When developers come in with plans, we need to make sure that staff, planning staff is getting it to legal so that there is nothing, so that this board who relies on staff, whether it's planning and legal, to make sure that we're staying within our rails and that we're getting exactly what we want, we need to make sure that the legal department has the opportunity to go through those notes and go through those plans. And as we, as a board, when you're making motions, I would highly encourage you, if you do not already do this, run those motions by legal so that if she's looking and the legal team is looking at those plans and looking at those notes, and then you're giving her a motion, that that she can make sure that they're lined up and that this board, this town gets exactly what we're asking for. Because from where I sat, 12,000 square feet of commercial, non-residential space for retail and restaurants and business, that's what I expected. And that's what our citizens expected. So the other piece for me, 15 months after there was a meeting, I find out, Commissioner Munger finds out, that was very frustrating. Yeah, by accident. That was, Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mayor, from hearing all this, if it's okay, I'd like to come back at the next meeting, maybe with some, I hear policy and/or policy and text sort of changes that are needed to help address, for instance, clear up the commercial or non-residential, residential, and then also more of a policy on if there's any discrepancy, that we go back to and you may change it, but at least to all the folks who said yes, and make sure they're all on the same page. So we can, we'll come back with some proposed language, and then you give us some feedback to tweak, and we put this ball in motion ASAP.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, I just want to add one other thing, not just running everything by legal. Once legal's done it and we have the motion together, the feedback I got from you, Jack, is it might be useful for planning to look at the actual motion to make sure that the intent of the motion matches the wording of,
Appreciate it.
yes. And so I think it's a two-way street.
100%. Is there anything else this evening? I genuinely hope that we never find ourselves here again, and that the safeguards that will come out of this, the safeguards that we will put in place, will make sure that what we're approving we get.
I will have more questions, but y'all will hear from me, and I'll share the information when I get it back.
Thank you, Commissioner Kovacs. With that, we have 4 minutes until the board meeting. So we will adjourn this pre-meeting and come back in 4 minutes.